Hi and welcome to the latest of our online tutorials. Today I'm going to be showing you how to crochet these cute little pumpkins to make your Halloween a little bit more handmade this year. You might have a bit more time on your hands, so I thought it'd be really nice to show you this quite simple design, but I think it absolutely looks so stunning. Simple yet effective. So I've gone for an alternative colour scheme. You can choose whichever colours you wish. I've just gone with colours that fit in our lounge, with the greys and silvers and the pinks. The yarn that I am using is the Aran Weight Paint Box Cotton. Okay, and I've chosen a steel colour and dusky pink colour just because they go nicely together. So because I'm using the Aran Weight, I'm going to be using the 5mm crochet hook, which it advises me to on the label that comes around the yarn. So you're going to need two colours. Your crochet hook, make sure it's the correct size for the yarn that you're using. You're going to need some toy stuffing or a nice soft, this is just an extra bit of wool roving that I've got actually that was left over. Pair of scissors, a stitch marker and a wool needle just for sewing in the ends when we're finished for tidying up. Okay, so if you get everything you need ready, and we'll start in a minute. Okay, so we've got everything ready, and for this pattern we are just going to use a slip knot, a foundation chain and a double crochet. So I'm going to assume for this design that you are familiar or you have some knowledge of those stitches. If you haven't, I have got some separate videos where I go into it in more depth. So if you want to have a look at those before you come back to this pattern, that's absolutely fine. But I'm just going to assume that you have some knowledge of those basic stitches. So the first one I'm going to do is make a slip knot. Okay, so I'm going to put the tail end of my yarn, this is just how I do it, there are lots of different ways of doing it. I put the tail end of my yarn over my finger, bring it to the front and cross. Okay, and I just hold it steady with my thumb. Then take the working yarn, which is the yarn that leads to the ball, round the back of my finger again and hold that. And then I'm going to take this loop over the second loop, over my fingertip, and then I'm going to replace my finger with my hook and just pull that. Okay, so it's still quite loose, but not too loose. Okay, tension's another issue. So that's a slip knot. Now I'm going to make a foundation chain, and I'm going to be making a foundation chain of 21. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, that's 3, 6, 7, 8, 21. Okay, so there I have got my foundation chain of 21. Now I've done 21 because I want this is going to be like a rectangle that we're creating, and I want it to be 20 stitches wide. So the extra one is a turning stitch, which is going to keep it straight. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work back along my foundation chain, and I'm going to be working into each of the chains. So if you open it, you can see the chain. Okay, if I hold it a bit closer, you can see that chain. Okay, so we're going to go into there with a double crochet, and we're going to do that all the way back. We are not going to do the first stitch from the hook. We're going to leave that, that's our turning chain. So we're going to be working into the second chain from our hook. Okay, so I'm going to go through. So I've got 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to grab my yarn, pull through. So I've got 2 loops on my hook, and then I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull through those 2 together. Okay, and that is my first double crochet. All right, so then I'm going to go into the next chain and do exactly the same. Yarn over and pull through. So I've got 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, and then that is my second double crochet. I'll show you once more. So we're going through the next chain, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, and we're going to work all the way back until we get to the last chain. Okay, so if you do that now, and then we'll meet when we're done. Right, we've got our foundation chain of 20, and what I am going to do is, you don't have to do this, especially if you're an experienced crocheter, is I'm just going to mark the very last stitch at the end, where, like at the end of the foundation chain where we turned. And the reason I do that is so that I always know where the last stitch in the row is, because sometimes this last stitch can kind of get lost, and then you might miss a stitch and then your piece isn't straight. So you don't have to, it's just a little tip that I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm at the end of my row. I'm going to do my turning chain of 1. Okay, so now I'm not going to go into my first chain, but I'm going to go into this chain. Now normally we would go through both loops of the hook. So can you see that? Okay, that is how we'd do a normal double crochet. Whereas what we're going to do this time in this design is we're not going to go through the front loop, we're just going to go through the back loop of the stitch. So if you look at it from the top, they look like V's. Okay, now if I take my hook out there, right, so if you look at the V, I'm not going to go through the front loop, I'm just going to go through the back loop, and that is where I'm going to make my double crochet. Okay, so I'm going to just go into the back loop, yarn over, pull through, so I've got the 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2. So you finish it off just like a regular double crochet. So into the back loop, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. And then you're just going to keep going, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so we're just going to work our way all the way back down this row until we get to the stitch marker. So if you do that now, and I'll meet you when we're there. Okay, so now I've got to the last stitch of the row, number 20. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my stitch marker out, got a bit caught, and I'm then going to work into that back loop only, and there we go. Okay, so now I've got 20 stitches, okay, in that row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to make sure I stitch mark that last stitch, so I know that I'll have 20, and I'm going to repeat that. So I'm going to do my turning chain of 1 and turn your work. Okay, not the first stitch from the hook, but the second stitch, back loop only, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, and we are going to keep going in this pattern till we have done 36 rows. Okay, so it's going to create a rectangular piece that we'll then be able to make into the pumpkin. Now, by going into the back loop only, you can see that that's what's beginning to create the ribbed effect. Okay, so every time you turn your work, your next row goes into the back loop only, and you'll get a really nice ribbed effect, which is going to be the outside of the pumpkin. Okay, so if you carry on with that now, you want to make sure that when you get to the end of each row that you've still got your 20 stitches. Okay, and you'll have a nice rectangular piece, and I'll meet you when we've done that. Okay, so I just thought I'd stop here, just so you could see how mine was progressing. So what you can see is you can see that we've got that nice straight edge. If I put it that way, actually, that'd be easier. You can see that we've got the nice straight edge. I've been making sure that we've got 20 stitches as we go along, and you can now really see that just by working in that back loop only, how the ribbed effect is coming together. Okay, so carry on with your rows. What we're aiming for is, I've said 36 rows, which should be about the 20 stitches. Okay, but it should be about 3 times that length. Okay, so we want our length of our rectangle to be sort of like 3 times the width. Okay, so keep going until you've done your 36 stitches, 36 rows, and then we'll sew it together. Right, so we have completed our rectangular piece. So I've got 36 rows of double crochet, which was worked in the back loop only. And what we're going to do now is we are going to fold this over so that it meets, and we are going to just double crochet into each stitch to join this together. Okay, so I'm going to start here. I'm going to go through my first double crochet, and I'm going to go through both loops this time on the stitch. So there's my one. Okay, go through the other one. Okay, and double crochet. All right, then you're going to work in the next stitch along. Make sure you're getting the next stitch and double crochet. So if you hold it so it's joined, there we go, each time you put your hook through, you'll go through both stitches. So if you do that, then when we've done that, we can cut the yarn and fasten off. Okay, so if you do that now, and I'll meet you when we're done. Right, so there we go. We've crocheted that together, and that row of double crochet, it kind of fits in with the ribbed effect. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put a cord or a piece of yarn through the bottom, and I'm going to pull it tight so it is secure together. So what you want to do is I've got about 60 or 70 centimetres of my same coloured yarn, and I'm just going to go through the beginning, and then if you can see all of like these little spaces at the edge of your piece, then we're going to just put that cord going through there. So you just want to weave it in and out, in and out, making sure you don't pull it through. Leave it so it's got an end. Okay, so then in, out, and what this is going to do, it's going to pull it together like a drawstring. Back, in, all the way around. Okay, I'll probably just do one more. We can sew in the loose ends up there when we've finished. Okay, so I've got back to the beginning there, and all I want to do is just pull this. There we go. So then I've got the base of my pumpkin. Okay, now don't cut this yarn just yet. Okay, you'll see why in a second. Okay, right, so that's pulled tight. So that's going to be the base of our pumpkin. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my stuffing. So as I say, I'm just using a bit of wool roving that I had left. Okay, but ordinarily I'd use toy stuffing or some core wool if you've been doing needle felting, or if you've got anything. Or you could use cotton wool, or you could use. Right, and I just want to stuff my pumpkin like that. Now this end that we had, because it's, I'm going to say we're going to tidy that up in a minute, but we're going to go through that hole at the bottom, and we're going to come up through the stuffing. Okay, so it's near enough centre, and then we are going to repeat the weaving in and out, so it forms like a drawstring at the top. Okay, so I'm going to go in and out. So don't worry about these little bits. We can sew those in at the end and tidy it all up. You can see how it's beginning to come together. I've just got a few more bits there just to make sure it's all secure. Oh, the yarn's come off my needle. Okay, so there we go. So I'm just going to pick up that last one. Out there, and there we go. Okay, so I'm just going to pull that tight so that closes the top of the pumpkin together. Okay, and then that bit at the bottom, make sure that's still exposed because we'll use that to tighten it in a minute. Okay, you can squash your stuff in so it gets like your pumpkin shape, and then all we're going to do is just do a couple of stitches just to sew that together to close that gap. Okay, so there's one. And another. so I'm happy that that's secure. Just going to tie that off. And there we go. Okay, so I'm not going to cut it right close to the knot, but what I will do is, because I want it to hide kind of in the pumpkin, because if we cut it too close to the knot it will fray, and it will all start to unravel, and we don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to weave it into the pumpkin, and I'm going to come out of the pumpkin there. Okay, and then I can just push that bit back in, so that is now hidden within the pumpkin. Okay, so do that for all the other little bits that you've got left. Okay, make sure you sew the bottom hole together as well, so it's secure. Hide the bits in the pumpkin, and I'll show you how to make the stalk. Okay, so for our stalk for the pumpkin, I'm going to use my coordinating colour, which in this case is the steel grey that I'm using. And again, we want to make a slip knot, and I'm going to make a foundation chain of 9. So 1, 9. Okay, so I'm going to now just work a double crochet back in each stitch, apart from, remember, not the first one from the hook, but into the second one. So we're going to work back, and we will have 8 double crochets. So that's 1, that's 2, 3, 6, 7 and 8. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm not going to cut the yarn, but I'm again going to trim it. Okay, and I'm going to fasten off that stitch. There we go. And I'm going to put my yarn through my wool needle. Okay. And then I'm going to fold my chain in half so it doubles over, and I'm just going to put a stitch through the bottom there just to secure it. Again, don't worry about this extra stitch we've got at the moment. And then all you want to do is place it where your stalk's going to go, and you just want to catch it and just stitch it a couple of times around the base of the stalk. It's easy once you've got the first stitch in. There you go. It can be a little bit fiddly. And I do go over that side, and then you just want to secure it. Okay, now you could add a couple of leaves if you wanted to. You could make your stalk bigger if you wanted to. The choice is yours. Okay, so there you go. I've secured my stalk, and I'm just going to sew those ends in and hide them in the pumpkin again. And then we will have our finished pumpkin. Okay, and there we go. My stalk has all been sewn in and all the ends hidden. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed that. If you want to make a smaller pumpkin, it's exactly the same method. Just begin with a foundation chain maybe of 15, 16, and for the larger pumpkin I would suggest a foundation chain of 30, but as long as you make sure that the length is approximately 3 times the width, then you should have enough to join it and stuff it for your pumpkin. Okay, if you've enjoyed today's tutorial, if you could leave a comment, share some pictures of your work, and click on the subscribe button to keep up to date with future tutorials, I'd be really grateful. Okay, thanks, see you again soon, bye.